January 29, 1944, 847 hours, 18,000 feet above Truk Lagoon, Caroline Islands. The sky over the Pacific is a canvas of smoke and fire. Lieutenant Junior Grade Alex Vracio tightens his grip on the control stick of his Grumman 6F Hellcat, his breathing deliberate inside the oxygen mask as sweat traces cold lines down his temple. Below him, the Japanese naval fortress of Truk. The Gibraltar of the Pacific burns under the weight of Operation Hailstone. Columns of black smoke twist skyward from fuel depots and ammunition dumps, merging with low clouds that hang like funeral shrouds over the lagoon. His radio crackles with voices layered in urgency and static. Bogies 11 o'clock high, count 6 no, 8 Zeeks inbound. The Mitsubishi A6M0, sleek, light, mythical in its lethality, had ruled these skies since Pearl Harbor. Japanese pilots called it Ryzen, the Zero fighter, and for nearly 3 years it had carved through American formations with an agility that seemed supernatural. Vrasiu knows the stories. He's read the after-action reports from Coral Sea, from Midway, from Guadalcanal, where American pilots returned shaken, describing an enemy aircraft that could turn inside anything the United States flew, that climbed like a falcon and struck before you realized death was above you, U.S. Navy Combat Intelligence Report, June 1942. But today, something is different. The Zeros dive toward the American strike group with practiced precision, their wings glinting in the harsh tropical sun. Vracio rolls his Hellcat into the attack, and the Japanese pilots, veterans of China, Pearl Harbor, the Philippines, expect the familiar dance. They expect the American pilot to panic, to try to turn with them, to burn fuel and altitude in a fruitless dogfight that ends with tracers stitching through aluminum and flesh. Instead, Vrasiu does something they don't anticipate. He doesn't turn. He dives, building speed, then pulls vertical in a climbing spiral that should be impossible for a fighter weighing over 15,000 pounds fully loaded. His 6 .50 caliber Browning machine guns, 3,600 rounds per minute of combined firepower, roar to life, and a Zero disintegrates in a shower of aluminum and fire. The Japanese wingman breaks left, but another Hellcat is already there, cutting off the angle. Within 90 seconds, 3 Zeros are falling toward the coral reefs below, trailing smoke and shattered canopies. Verse 16 Action Report, January 29, 1944. On the ground, in the cockpits of burning aircraft, and in the radio chatter, intercepted by American intelligence officers, there is confusion. Disbelief. The Zero was supposed to be invincible. The Americans were supposed to be inferior. Rewind to December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor. The Mitsubishi A6M0 arrives over Oahu like a nightmare made metal, its presence a psychological sledgehammer that shatters American confidence in a single morning. Flown by elite pilots of the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service, the Zero is a revelation, a fighter that can escort bombers over 1,200 miles, dogfight at altitudes above 30,000 feet, and outmaneuver anything in the sky. It weighs just 5,313 pounds empty, powered by a Nakajima Saki 14-cylinder radial engine producing 940 horsepower. Its rate of climb is extraordinary, 3,000 feet per minute. Its turning radius is tighter than any American fighter's. In the hands of pilots trained for years in the brutal crucible of the China theater, it is a weapon of terrifying efficiency. Bundesarchiv, Japanese Naval Air Technical Arsenal Records, 1941. American pilots flying the Brewster F-2, a Buffalo, and the Grumman Surf Wildcat learn quickly that dogfighting a Zero is suicide. Trying to turn with a Zeke is like trying to outrun a cheetah, one Marine pilot writes in his diary after Guadalcanal. You do it once, and you don't get a second chance. USMC Squadron VMF 223 Pilot Diary, August 1942. But the Zero's dominance comes with a price invisible to fear it. To achieve its legendary agility and range, Chief Designer Jiro Horikoshi made calculated sacrifices. The Zero has no armor plating protecting the pilot. Its fuel tanks are unprotected, prone to catastrophic fires when hit. Its airframe, though nimble, is fragile. Built to shave every possible ounce, it crumples under sustained fire. And its armament, while deadly in the hands of an expert marksman, consists of only two 7.7 mm machine guns and two 20 mm cannons with limited ammunition. In 1941 and 1942, these weaknesses don't matter. Japanese pilots are the best trained naval aviators in the world, graduates of programs that wash out 90% of candidates. They don't get hit. They strike first, strike precisely, and vanish into the clouds. American losses mount. At the Battle of the Coral Sea in May 1942, U.S. Navy pilots struggled to counter zero formations. At Midway a month later, torpedo squadrons are slaughtered before they can release their payloads. Zeros dancing through defensive formations like wolves through sheep, U.S. Naval Institute Analysis, 1943. The psychological impact is immense. American pilots develop what intelligence officers quietly label zero panic, a visceral fear that saps aggression and clouds judgment. But in the factories of Bethpage, Long Island, engineers at the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation are already designing the weapon that will erase that fear forever. By mid-1942, the U.S. Navy understands its problem with brutal clarity. The F-4F Wildcat, though rugged, is outclassed in speed, climb, and maneuverability. American pilots survive by refusing to dogfight, using tactics developed by men like Lieutenant Commander John S. Jimmy Thatch, whose Thatch Weave uses mutual support and coordinated turns to negate the Zero's agility. It works, but it's defensive, reactive, a tactic born of desperation rather than dominance. Thatch report to Buer, July 1942. The Navy needs a fighter that can hunt Zeros, not merely survive them. Grumman's answer arrives in the form of the XF-6F1 prototype, which takes flight for the first time on June 26, 1942. Leading the design team is Grumman Chief Engineer William Schwendler and Project Engineer Robert L. Hall, who synthesized combat reports from the Pacific into a single guiding principle: build a fighter that turns American strengths, firepower, durability, production capacity into advantages that override Japanese agility. The result is a machine that looks brutish compared to the Zero's elegance. The Hellcat weighs 9,238 pounds empty, nearly double the Zero's weight. It's powered by a Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp engine, a monstrous 18-cylinder radial producing 2,000 horsepower. It's armored. It's armed with 6.50 caliber machine guns, each loaded with 400 rounds, and it's fast, 375 mph at 17,300 feet, faster than the Zero at combat altitudes. Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation Technical Report, 1943. But speed and armor alone won't win the Pacific. The Hellcat needs something more, a secret advantage invisible to Japanese intelligence, hidden in the mechanics of aerial combat, waiting to reveal itself in the skies over islands whose names will become legend. The secret lies not in a single innovation, but in a constellation of engineering decisions that, together, create a fighter fundamentally suited to the realities of carrier warfare and the weaknesses of its opponent. Japanese intelligence officers, analyzing captured photographs and wreckage from early encounters, see a larger, heavier American fighter and assume it will handle like the Wildcat, ponderous, unable to compete in a turning fight. They are catastrophically wrong. The Hellcat's designers understood that dogfighting isn't only about turn radius. It's about energy management, about dictating engagement terms, about combining speed, climb rate, firepower, and durability into a package that allows the pilot to choose when and how to fight. The R2800 engine gives the Hellcat a rate of climb 2980 feet per minute, nearly equal to the Zero's, despite weighing thousands of pounds more. This allows Hellcat pilots to maintain altitude advantage, the currency of air combat. The aircraft's roll rate, the speed at which it can rotate along its longitudinal axis, is superior to the Zero's at high speeds, allowing American pilots to reverse direction and disengage at will, Naval Air Technical Training Command Manual, 1944. And the Hellcat's structural strength means it can dive at speeds exceeding 450 mph without shedding components, a tactic Japanese pilots cannot safely replicate. On November 11, 1943, Hellcats encounter Zeros in large numbers for the first time during strikes on Rabaul, the Japanese stronghold on New Britain. The results stun both sides. The F-33, flying from USS Essex, engages a formation of Zeros protecting bombers over Simpson Harbor. The Japanese pilots execute their standard tactic, a slashing diving attack followed by a climbing turn to re-engage. But the Hellcats don't scatter. They don't panic. Instead, they accelerate in shallow dives, building speed, then zoom climb vertically, retaining energy the Zeros bleed off in their tighter turns. They couldn't follow us up. Lieutenant Hugh Richard Stambuk reports in his debriefing. We'd climb, roll over, and by the time they tried to react, we were in firing position. It was like shooting gallery targets. 33 after action report, November 11th, 1943. The engagement lasts 12 minutes. F-33 shoots down 11 Zeros without loss. Japanese survivors report confusion and demoralization. The new American fighter climbs like ours, but it is faster and does not burn when hit. Our 20 shells strike the wings and fuselage, but the aircraft continues fighting, dramatized composite based on interrogation records. U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey, 1946. The Hellcat 6 Browning M2 .50 caliber machine guns represent a profound shift in aerial firepower philosophy. Each gun fires 750-850 rounds per minute, delivering a combined weight of fire that can soar through the Zero's unarmored structure in seconds. 50 caliber round, weighing half an ounce and traveling at 2,900 feet per second, carries enough kinetic energy to punch through aluminum, sever control cables, and ignite fuel vapor with incendiary rounds mixed into every belt. Grumman mounts the guns in the wings, 3 per side, with synchronized firing controlled by a single trigger on the control stick. Ammunition capacity, 400 rounds per gun, 2,400 total, gives Hellcat pilots roughly 30 seconds of sustained fire, triple the Zero's cannon endurance. Technical Manual TM9 294, 1943. The psychological impact on Japanese pilots is devastating. Zero tactics relied on precise short bursts from 20 cannons at close range, marksman shooting requiring skill and nerve. Hellcat pilots can afford to spray, to walk their tracers onto target, to fire from 1,000 feet and still achieve kills. The margin for error shifts decisively in America's favor. But firepower means nothing if the pilot dies before pulling the trigger. The Hellcat's survivability is its most revolutionary feature, a response to brutal lessons learned in the first year of the Pacific War. Behind the engine, a steel armor plate protects the pilot's back and head. The fuel tanks, located in the fuselage and wings, are self-sealing, a layered construction of rubber and fabric that swells when punctured, sealing bullet holes before fuel can drain or ignite. The oil cooler and hydraulic lines are shielded. Even the windscreen is armored glass, 1.5 inches thick, Grumman Engineering Specification Sheet, 1943. These features add weight, yes, but they transform the Hellcat into a fighter that can absorb punishment, return to the carrier, and fly again the next morning. A Zero hit in the fuel tank burns. A Hellcat hit in the fuel tank keeps fighting. This calculus, durability over agility, proves decisive in a war of attrition where trained pilots are more valuable than airframes. The Battle of the Philippine Sea, June 1920, 1944, becomes the Hellcat's defining moment. Nicknamed the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot by American pilots, it is the largest carrier battle in history, and it ends Japanese naval aviation as an effective force. Vice Admiral Gisaburo Ozawa launches 373 aircraft from his mobile fleet, hoping to destroy Admiral Raymond Spruance's Fifth Fleet and halt the American advance toward the Philippines. Waiting for them are 450 F-6F Hellcats, launched from 15 American carriers in coordinated waves. The Japanese strike groups, composed of Zeros, Judy dive bombers and Jill torpedo bombers, are detected 150 miles out by radar, another American advantage. Hellcats climbed to intercept, positioning themselves between the attackers and the fleet, altitude on their side. At 10:36 hours, the first wave of Japanese aircraft enters the engagement zone. They came in layers, stepped up from 10,000 to 20,000 feet, recalls Commander David McCampbell, Commander Air Group 15. We hit them from above, dove through, pulled up and hit them again. They never got organized. McCampbell interview, U.S. Naval Institute, 1967. The slaughter is methodical. Hellcats smash through bomber formations, their .50 calibers shredding unarmored Judys and Jills. When Zeros dive to intervene, Hellcat divisions engage in coordinated pairs, one aircraft baiting the Zero into a turn while his wingman positions for a high-side attack. Japanese pilots, many of them hastily trained replacements for losses at Midway and Guadalcanal, lacked the skill to exploit the Zero's remaining advantages. By day's end, the Japanese lose 330 aircraft. The Americans lose 23 Hellcats, most to operational accidents rather than combat. U.S. Fifth Fleet Action Report, June 1944. The psychological impact is annihilating. Japan's carrier air groups, once the finest in the world, are gutted beyond recovery. The annihilation of Japanese naval aviation over the Marianas does not happen by chance. It is the culmination of an industrial and doctrinal transformation that begins the moment the first Zero strafes Pearl Harbor. The Hellcat is merely the visible tip of a vast American war machine, a system of production, training, logistics, and tactical innovation that Japan cannot hope to match. In 1943, Grumman's Bethpage facility produces Hellcats at a rate exceeding 5 per day. By 1944, production peaks at over 500 aircraft per month, with additional assembly lines established at Grumman's new plant in Trenton, New Jersey. Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation production records, 1945. Many of them women who entered the industrial workforce for the first time, rivet, weld and wire Hellcats on assembly lines that operate around the clock. Engineers like Robert Hall continually refine the design based on combat feedback, introducing improved gun sights, upgraded radios and strengthened tailhooks for carrier operation. Each improvement is tested, standardized and rolled out across the fleet within weeks, a cycle of adaptation Japan's fragmented industrial base cannot replicate. Meanwhile, the training pipeline transforms American pilots from novices into competent fighter pilots in 6 months. At Naval Air Station Jacksonville at Pensacola, at airfields across Texas and California, cadets fly hundreds of hours in trainers before transitioning to the Hellcat. They practice gunnery against toed sleeves, dogfight against instructors in mock combat, and study films of actual engagements projected in ready room. By the time we reached the fleet, we'd logged more flight hours than Japanese veterans of the China campaign, recalls Ensign Robert Murray, who joined Verse 18 in early 1944. We weren't as naturally skilled, maybe, but we were prepared. We knew our aircraft's strengths, and we knew their weaknesses. Murray Oral History, National WW2 Museum, 2002. This systemic approach, training, production, and doctrine operating in concert, creates a force multiplier that overwhelms individual Japanese skill. The psychological collapse of Japanese fighter pilots begins in the skies over the Marianas and accelerates through 1944 and 1945. Post-war interrogations of captured pilots reveal a profound shift in morale and confidence. Lieutenant Saburo Sakai, one of Japan's leading aces who survived the war, describes the Hellcat as the end of our superiority. The American pilot in a Hellcat was not afraid of us anymore. He would attack head-on, knowing his armor and guns gave him the advantage. Our pilots, especially the new ones, began to fear combat, paraphrased from Sakai memoir, Samurai, 1957. U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey interviews conducted in 1946 document similar sentiments across dozens of captured aircrew. The Grumman was too strong, one unnamed Zero pilot admits. We could hit it many times, and it would not fall. But one burst from its guns, and our aircraft exploded. U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey, Interrogation Report #317, 1946. This psychological inversion, American confidence rising as Japanese morale crumbles. proves as decisive as any technical advantage. On the carrier decks, a different kind of heroism unfolds. Aviation mechanics, ordnancemen, and plane handlers work 18-hour shifts in the tropical heat, repairing battle damage, loading ammunition, and launching strikes. After the Battle of the Philippine Sea, USS Lexington's maintenance crews repair and return to service a Hellcat with 127 bullet and shrapnel holes in its wings and fuselage, a testament to the aircraft's ruggedness and the skill of the men who keep it flying. USS Lexington War Diary, June 1944. These sailors, many of them teenagers from farms and small towns, are as vital to victory as the pilots they support. They operate under constant threat of kamikaze attack, torpedo strike, and accident. The flight deck of a carrier is one of the most dangerous workplaces in human history. Yet they perform their duties with the professionalism that makes the Hellcat's combat record possible. By the summer of 1945, the Hellcat's dominance is absolute. Over the course of the war, F-6F pilots are credited with 5,163 enemy aircraft destroyed in air-to-air combat, more than any other Allied fighter type. The Hellcat's kill ratio against all Japanese aircraft types is 19 enemy aircraft destroyed for every Hellcat lost in combat. U.S. Navy Aviation Statistics, 1945. Flying from carriers, the Hellcat ranges across the Pacific, supporting invasions from Tarawa to Okinawa, destroying airfields, strafing convoys, and securing air superiority that allows American forces to advance across thousands of miles of ocean. The Zero, once feared, becomes prey. Japanese industry, crippled by submarine blockade and strategic bombing, cannot replace losses or introduce new designs in time to counter the Hellcat. Pilots are rushed through abbreviated training, sent into combat with barely 100 hours of flight time, a death sentence against veteran Hellcat squadrons. The attrition is pitiless. By August 1945, Japan's naval air arm is a shadow, incapable of contesting American operations even in defense of the home islands. The Hellcat's influence extends far beyond World War II. Its design philosophy prioritized durability, firepower, and ease of production over agility becomes foundational to American fighter doctrine during the Cold War. The Navy's jet fighters of the 1950s, aircraft like the F-9F Panther and F-4D Skyray, inherit the Hellcat's emphasis on ruggedness and carrier suitability. Even modern fighters like the F-18 Hornet owe a conceptual debt to Grumman's engineering principles. Build a platform that allows the average pilot to succeed, not just the ace. The lessons of the Hellcat versus Zero duel, that systemic advantages trump individual brilliance. The training and production matter as much as design, that adaptability wins wars, echo through every air campaign from Korea to the Persian Gulf. In the decades after the war, surviving Hellcat pilots gather at reunions, their numbers dwindling each year. They speak of fear and courage, of friends lost over the Pacific, of the machine that carried them through the most violent skies in history. The Hellcat wasn't the most beautiful airplane. Alex Rescue reflects in a 1992 interview, decades after his 6-kill day over the Marianas. But it was honest. It did what it was built to do. It brought us home. Rescue interview, American Aviation Historical Society, 1992. In that simple statement lies the essence of the Hellcat's legacy. It was not an aircraft of elegance or mystique, but of purpose, a weapon forged in the fires of desperation, refined by engineers who listened to pilots, built by workers who understood the stakes, and flown by men who transformed American defeat into overwhelming victory. The Zero's dominance lasted 3 years. The Hellcat's supremacy and the industrial system that created it reshaped the world for generations. Japanese pilots laughed at the Hellcat when they first saw it. Bulky, heavy, ungraceful. Then they met it in battle, and the laughter died in the flames over truck, over the Marianas, over the Philippine Sea. The age of the Zero ended not with a whisper, but with the roar of 18 cylinders and the thunder of 6 Browning machine guns, sweeping the sky clean.